In the small town of Maplewood, there was an old antique shop that seemed to have sprung up overnight. Its owner, an elderly woman named Margaret, appeared mysterious and distant. Locals whispered about the shop, especially about a large, ornate mirror that hung on the far wall. It was said to be cursed, though no one knew why. One evening, a curious teenager named Alex decided to pay the shop a visit. The moment he stepped inside, the air felt thick and heavy, like stepping into a different world. Dust motes danced in the dim light as he wandered among the curiosities, old books, cracked porcelain dolls, and tarnished jewelry. Eventually, his gaze was drawn to the mirror. It was framed in dark wood, intricately carved with twisting vines and grotesque faces that seemed to squirm when you looked too closely. "Can I help you?" Margaret's raspy voice startled him. He turned to see her watching him with keen, hawkish eyes. "I was just looking at the mirror," Alex replied, unsure if he should be entranced or afraid. "Ah, the reflection," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It shows more than just your face." Intrigued, he brushed off her warning, staring into the glass. At first, he only saw himself, a teenager with tousled hair and an adventurous glint in his eyes. But then, something flickered in the corner of his vision. He leaned closer. In the reflection, he saw shadows that didn't belong, shapes moving just behind him, even though he knew the shop was Suddenly, his breath caught in his throat. The mirror flickered again, and a face emerged, an expression twisted in horror, mouth moving in silent screams. The reflection was a thin figure, its eyes sunken and dark. It looked desperate and lost. "Leave!" It seemed to scream silently. Alarmed, Alex stumbled back, crashing into a stack of old boxes. Margaret's cackle echoed through the room. "You shouldn't have looked into it, boy," she said, her eyes gleaming with a strange light. "It sees your fears. It draws them out." Ignoring her, Alex bolted for the door. But as he reached for the handle, he felt the familiar tug of darkness at the edges of his vision. He glanced back at the mirror. The figure was still there, now closer, mouth moving faster, more frantic. He wanted to scream but couldn't find the words. The door wouldn't budge. Panic surged as he realized the shadows in the mirror were spilling out, twisting and curling around his feet like smoke. He fought to pull the door open, to escape this madness, but it felt as if the entire shop was closing in on him. Just then, Margaret whispered, "You must face it, child. You cannot run." With a surge of desperation, Alex turned back to the mirror. "What do you want?" he shouted, his voice breaking. The figure's eyes locked onto his, and in a moment of horrifying clarity, Alex understood. The creature in the mirror was him, his deepest fears materialized, his disappointments and failures manifesting as a moan of himself. Something inside him snapped, and he dropped to his knees in front of the mirror. "You don't control me," he screamed, tears streaming down his face. "You're just a reflection." In that instant, the grip of the shadows loosened, and the figure let out a deafening wail before shattering into countless shards, each piece reflecting fragments of his own turmoil. The mirror trembled violently, and the antique shop echoed with the sound of breaking glass. With a final push, Alex forced the door open and stumbled into the night, gasping for air. Behind him, the screams faded, leaving only silence. He ran home, heart pounding and adrenaline surging, vowing never to look back. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of that cursed mirror haunted him. Wherever he went, he could feel the shadows lurking just beyond his vision, waiting for a moment of vulnerability to draw him back into their depths. One night, while trying to shake off the memories, he decided to confront his fear. He grabbed a flashlight and returned to the antique shop. But when he arrived, the place was different. The shop was empty, cleared out as if it had never existed at all. Just then, a flicker of recognition caught his eye. A small, broken shard of the mirror lay on the ground, catching the moonlight. Unknowingly, he moved closer, and in that moment, the figure reformed, emerging from the darkness within. This time, it was grinning, its monstrous smile stretched to say, "You've come back for a visit." As Alex's heart dropped into his stomach, he felt the shadows wrap around him once more, pulling him into the dark, forever lost to the reflection of his fears, now waiting for the next curious soul to gaze upon the cursed mirror in the forgotten shop.